to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles, coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Here's Charlene. Hello, Charlene.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon to everyone. It's great to be back. I'm Charlene Navaja from your EDC Vietnam Bureau, bringing you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, the Philippine Foreign Ministry said it had confronted Beijing's envoy over the illegal lingering of Chinese boats at a contested reef in the South China Sea, stepping up the diplomatic role.
We have witnessed yet another weekend of coordinated bloodshed in many parts of the country, including the reported mass...
Myanmar's slaughter could become a new Syria, warns UN fights chief.
But do not be afraid, actually.
President Duterte explained to the public that the shortage of COVID vaccines is due to the so-called vaccine nationalism.
Kulang tayo sa
And countries of the ASEAN region face challenges.
First, in the Philippines, the Foreign Ministry said Tuesday it had confronted Beijing's envoy over the illegal lingering of Chinese boats at a contested reef in the South China Sea, stepping up the diplomatic role. 9 vessels are still at the reef, Foreign Secretary Teodoro Locsin said on Twitter, citing a government agency. Many of the boats have scattered across the Spratly archipelago. Come time to go, Locsin tweeted. While it may well be traditional fishing grounds, tradition yields to law. In a rare move, the Philippine Foreign Affairs Department summoned the Chinese ambassador Wang Shilian on Monday to express its utmost displeasure over the issue. The last time the Foreign Ministry summoned a Chinese ambassador was in June 2019 after a Chinese vessel sank a Filipino fishing boat at Reed Bank and left the crew at sea, according to the ministry. Several countries have already expressed concerns over the renewed tension in the region. The U.S., a key military ally of the Philippines, and its former colonial master reminded China last week of its treaty obligations to Manila in the event of an attack in the waters. Hundreds of soldiers from U.S. and Philippine forces are currently holding joint military drills in the Southeast Asian country. It repeated its demand for the immediate departure of all Chinese boats from Philippine waters, according to the department in a statement.
President Rodrigo Duterte and Russian President Vladimir Putin had a telesummit on Tuesday and discussed ways to help each nation defeat the coronavirus disease, 2019 or COVID-19 pandemic, Malacanang confirmed. In a statement, the palace said Duterte's open and productive phone conversation with Putin lasted around 30 minutes. The palace statement read, and I quote, President Duterte and President Putin reaffirmed their shared commitment to further enhance cooperation as the Philippines and Russia commemorate the 45th anniversary of diplomatic relations this year and vowed to cooperate in the fight against COVID-19. It was on June 2, 1976, when the Philippines forced formal diplomatic ties with the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Malacanang said Duterte was thankful to Putin for Russia's commitment to bolster its cooperation with the Philippines in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. The palace said the two leaders discussed the global and regional vaccine landscapes and emphasized the need to mobilize COVID-19 vaccines like Russia's Sputnik V to as many countries as possible. Malacanang added that Duterte told Putin about the Philippines' plan to order 20 million doses of Sputnik V vaccine from Russia. Malacanang said Duterte and Putin also tackled the two countries' greater cooperation in various fields like defense and cooperation, trade and investments, agriculture, energy, and politics. Duterte also reiterated his invitation for Putin to visit Philippines as soon as circumstances allow. Malacanang said Putin welcomed Duterte's renewed invitation.
The ongoing repression of largely peaceful protests in Myanmar could descend into full-blown conflict on a par with Syria. That according to UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet, warning this on Tuesday in a fresh appeal to the country's military rulers to stop using live ammunition on demonstrators. The High Commissioner urged states with influence to take immediate and impactful action to halt the slaughter of civilians. From the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, here's spokesperson Ravina Shamdasani in Geneva. Take a look.
We have witnessed yet another weekend of coordinated bloodshed in many parts of the country, including the reported mass killing of at least 82 people in Bago between Friday and Saturday. The military seems intent on intensifying its pitiless policy of violence against the people of Myanmar, using military-grade and indiscriminate weaponry. The High Commissioner states that there are clear echoes of Syria in 2011. There, too, we saw peaceful protests met with unnecessary and clearly disproportionate force. The state's brutal, persistent repression of its own people led to some individuals taking up arms, followed by a downward and rapidly expanding spiral of violence all across the country. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights at the time warned in 2011 that the failure of the international community to respond with united resolve could be disastrous for Syria and beyond. The past 10 years have shown just how horrific the consequences have been for millions of civilians. The High Commissioner fears that the situation in Myanmar is heading towards a full-blown conflict. States must not allow the deadly mistakes of the past in Syria and elsewhere to be repeated. Over the weekend, credible reports...
Maldives begins vaccination campaign with Pfizer. Steffi Di Juan, our EBC Vietnam Maldives Bureau. Hi, Steffi.
Hello, Charlene. Good afternoon. Yes, that is my latest news for today. Maldives began administering the first dose of Pfizer vaccine under the country's vaccination program, or COVID-19 DFAO. Health Protection Agency, or HPA, announced that Pfizer was now being administered only to those who had pre-registered appointments for it. The agency had previously revealed those who are eligible for the Pfizer vaccine and asked those individuals to register for appointments. Eligibility details are available via HPA. Those who register will be contacted by HPA with appointment details. In March, Maldives received 5,850 doses of the Pfizer vaccine through the COVAX facility. Meanwhile, IMF expects Maldives' real GDP to grow 18.9% in 2019. International Monetary or Fund IMF forecast Maldives' real GDP will grow 18.9% this year. Statistics released by IMF shows Maldives' real GDP dropped to negative 32.2% in 2020 after the country was forced to close its borders and shut down the tourism industry due to the COVID-19 pandemic. IMF forecast Maldives' GDP will be 13.4% in 2022 and 12.6% in 2023. The forecast by IMF comes after global credit rating agency Fitch announced in March that it expects Maldives' economy to grow 18% in this year. Tourism began picking up in the Q4 of last year. Maldivian government has stated that they expect Maldives' economy to begin recovering in Q2 this year. And that's my quick update from Maldives. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you so much, Steffi, for your report. Stay healthy and stay safe out there.
Thank you so much. Likewise to you. Reporting live from Maldives, this is Stephanie Juan, and we live in interesting times.
In Thailand, vaccination registration for general public begins May 1st. Crystal Dimarukot, our EBC Thailand Bureau correspondent. Crystal.
Good afternoon, Charlene, and to all our viewers. Yes, that is true. Starting on May 1st, the general public can register for COVID-19 vaccinations. According to the nation Thailand, the Public Health Ministry will start vaccinating the general public against COVID-19 around mid-May, when the first lot of the locally manufactured AstraZeneca vaccine will be ready. Public Health Permanent Secretary Dr. Kiatipo Morit has said. He also added that the government aims to have 50 to 60% of the population vaccinated as soon as possible to effectively control the outbreak. He said, and I quote, "We will also expand the vaccination units by collaborating with the private sector, which will provide locations such as shopping malls or other modern trade venues. This will maximize the number of people getting vaccinated per day from the current rate of 500 per day per hospital." End of quote. Thailand started vaccinating since February 28 to those who are in the high-risk groups, such as medical professionals and those who have close contact with patients. Based on the information given by the government's COVID-19 Information Center, a total of 578,532 doses of vaccines have been given to people in 77 provinces from February 28 to April 12. Of this, 505,215 received their first job, while 73,317 received a second job. According to Kiatapum, there are 4 channels where people can register to get the vaccine via the MORPROM, which means Doctor's Read. This is the ministry's official line account, the mobile MORPROM application. It will be ready to download on May 1st, initially on Android phones. Another is in the hospital via telephone or by contacting public health volunteers nationwide. Those who have been vaccinated, Charlene, will receive both a paper and digital certificate in the form of a QR code. The ministry expects vaccine passports for international travel to be ready in June, once the World Health Organization finalizes all important criteria. And that's the latest news here in Thailand. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you so much, Crystal. You also take care in Bangkok.
Thank you. Stay safe, Charlene. Reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. This is Crystal Nicole Dimarukot, and we live in interesting times.
A UN rights expert has urged Laos to free 3 activists serving long prison sentences for criticizing the country's authoritarian communist government. Take a look. The trio, Somphon Phimason Sukan Chaitad and Lukham Tamavong, were jailed in 2017 after taking part in a protest outside the Laos embassy in Bangkok and posting Facebook messages. Mary Lawler, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders, said they had not had a fair trial and called for their release. Reports at the time indicated that Somphon and Sukan were given sentences of 20 and 18 years, respectively, while Lodgam was jailed for 12 years. But the UN statement said Somphon was actually jailed for 30 years and Sukan for 16. While it remains a popular destination for backpackers, tiny, impoverished Laos is one of the world's most repressive governments. Foreign journalists are not allowed in without a government minder, and the Communist Party retains full control over local media. Critics are routinely jailed or simply disappear.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
President Duterte explained to the public that the shortage of the COVID-19 vaccine is due to so-called vaccine nationalism. The Philippines is not the only country experiencing vaccine shortages.
But do not be afraid actually, my countrymen, that magkulang tayo. Magkulang tayo sa medisina. Nagkulang tayo sa vaccine. Yung problema na yan, hindi lang atin. Ang problema na yan hanggang sa buong daigdig yan. Remember, right at the beginning, I was already delivering a very solemn speech na there's something coming our way. It's a microbe, it's a virus, and eventually it would lead to our shores. We must be prepared for this because sabi nila, this can be another pandemic. And true to form, ito na nga, pandemic nga ang lumabas. Meron pero kulang. Na just the same, at pag-umpisa pa lang natin, sinabi ko na sa inyo, agawan ito. Tayo mahirap lang, so tayo talaga ang last nito. Ibig sabihin, those who have the money will get it first. And those who have the countries who manufacture the vaccine first will have the first supply for their own. Wala tayong magawa niyan. Kung tatakbo man ito ng ilang taon, it could run until heaven. Ito ang ano nila. It could run until heaven's time. Ibig sabihin, panahon ng mamatay lahat. Wala talaga tayong magawa.
In the related news, President Duterte's remark about waiving his vaccination slot was his personal conviction that may change when more vaccine supplies arrive in the country, according to Malacanang. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made this clarification after the president, in a public address late Monday night, said he is willing to give up his slot to those who need the vaccine to live productively. Let's listen in.
Well, panandali ang sentimiento po ni Presidente yung sinabi niyang kahapon na habang hindi pa sapat po ang mga bakuna, hahayaan na muna niya na mauna ang ating mga kababayan bago siya. So I hope that will change po dahil parating naman po yung mas maraming mga supply, lalo na sa mga buwan ng Mayo at ng Hunyo. Importante naman po talaga ang vaccine confidence. Pero nakikita po natin ngayon, no, dahil limitado rin ang ating supply, hindi po problema ngayon ang vaccine confidence. No? So siguro po pag talagang dumagsana yung ating supply at kinakailangan madaliin na talaga ang pagbabakuna sa lahat, yun po yung panahon na magpapabakuna ang ating presidente.
To Cambodia now, where the Siem Reap provincial administration has decided to close 2 markets in Vihir Chen village. According to Cambodia News English, 4 COVID-19 cases were discovered there on April 12, 2021. The decision made on April 13, 2021 announced the closure for 2 weeks until April 25. All persons living in the 2 market areas were banned from leaving. Those going to buy food and medicine must have permission from the authorities. In Phnom Penh, emergency laws has been extended until April 28. Authorities this week banned travel between provinces, imposed a nighttime curfew in the capital Phnom Penh, and shut down popular tourism sites, including the famed Angkor Wat Archaeological Park, according to AFP. Wearing face mask is now mandatory in Phnom Penh, and violators face a fine of up to $250. But Prime Minister Hun Sen on Saturday threatened harsher measures, saying anyone who flouts a 2-week quarantine period would face a quick trial and jail time. Cambodia has already passed a strict COVID-19 prevention bill that could see people who flout virus rules jailed for up to 20 years.
In the Laging Handa public briefing, DepEd Philippine Secretary Leonor Briones emphasized that in the midst of the pandemic, they're promoting the continuation of education through distance learning. Secretary Briones said they plan to limit the use of printed materials as well as a long-term plan to avoid damage it could cause to the environment. Take a look.
We plan for all possibilities. Of course, it is very challenging. So you have alternative 1, alternative 2, alternative 3. Ngayon, hindi natin mapipredict kung ano talaga ang mangyari. Maraming variables na hindi natin mapipredict. Kaya yung pagplano naman natin, iba't iba yung assumption. Yung request ni Congressman na tayo ay magplano for a prolonged blended learning, distance learning, ay talagang kasama na yan sa pagpaplano natin. Kaya only recently, nakakatuwa yung Rocky, ang Bureau of Customs halimbawa, nag-donate sila ng 2 sets yun, no, na more than 5,000 yung first set ng mga gadgets, computers, laptops, tablets, etc. Ang China nag-donate din at inuna namin yung mga lugar na yung tinatawag nating last mile schools. So we started distributing gadgets already in anticipation of an eventual shift or higher level of dependency on technology. Maski sabihin natin makokontrol natin ang COVID o aalis na si COVID kung sakali mangyari man yan, ayaw din natin i-encourage yung napakataas na dependency natin sa printed material. Kasi ilang ulit ko na yung sinasabi na pinaka-mabigat ang paggamit ng maraming printed material taon-taon. Dahil pinapatay natin yung ating mga puno, kung papatayin natin yung ating mga puno, dadalas yung mga baha, at nakikita naman natin kung ano ang nangyayari. Kailangan natin ng papel, materials, at napakamahal ng printed material. So, whatever happens to COVID, talagang we are also endeavoring to lessen our dependency on printed material if we want the environment to survive, if we want the planet to survive, if we want to limit the occurrence of floods and other natural disasters, which use up a lot of trees, use up a lot of paper, and use up a lot of financial resources. So, salamat sa question na yan. Iba't ibang level yung planning namin. We cannot plan na ito lang ang objective namin and kailangan masunod dahil yun ang objective namin. No. If this happens, then this is what we will do. If that happens, this is also what we will do.
A temporary mobile hospital and a drive-through vaccination site will soon rise at the Rizal Park in Manila, the Department of Tourism, or DOT, said Wednesday. The National Parks Development Committee, or NPDC, an attached agency of the DOT, anonymously approved the proposal of Manila Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Dumagoso to construct a temporary mobile hospital at Rizal Park's Burnham Green during a Board of Directors meeting on April 13. The Manila City Hall committed to design, construct, maintain, and manage the hospital up to its logical conclusion at no cost to the national government, said the DOT. Dumagoso also promised to restore the Burnham Green area to its original condition. During the meeting, the NPDC also approved the construction of a temporary drive-through vaccination site at Independence Road, or parade grounds, of the Carino Grandstand, which will be located beside the drive-through RT-PCR testing facility managed by the City of Manila and the NPDC. The drive-through testing, launched in July 2020, provided rapid serology test for up to 700 people daily, 5 days a week, before it was converted into an RT-PCR testing site on January 18. The temporary drive-through vaccination site is expected to accommodate 350 to 400 persons per day.
Food and Drug Administration Philippines Chief Dr. Eric Domingo discussed the current situation of granting emergency use authorization to COVID-19 vaccines. And so far, 4 vaccines have been given the EUA, which is Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, and Gamaleya. Let's listen in.
Ito po yung status po ng mga nag-apply po sa atin tsaka mga inaasahan po nating mag-apply ng mga vaccines for emergency use authorization. Ang nag-grant na po natin yung unang nag-apply sa atin na 4. Ito po yung Pfizer, yung AstraZeneca, yung pong Sinovac, at yung pinakauli po yung Sputnik, yung Gamaleya. Meron pa 5 po tayo na application from India, yung Bharat Biotech. Meron pa po silang kulang sa atin na kailangan i-submit na proof of good manufacturing practice. Pero malapit na rin pong matapos yun, basta makompleto lang po nila yung kanilang mga requirement. Noong pong March 31, right before Holy Week, sir, nag-apply na rin po yung Janssen, yung Johnson & Johnson. Ito po ay isang one dose lang po binibigay. Meron na po itong EUA sa US, sa Europe, sa Canada, Switzerland, at saka sa WHO po na emergency use listing. So ito po ang ongoing evaluation natin, and we hope to finish all of this po within the week. Pagkatapos po, ang hindi pa tayo po malinaw, yung Sinopharm, meron pong sumulat sa amin na gusto mag-apply, pero nung hiningan po namin ng requirements, hindi pa po nila binibigay, and we're still waiting for that. Yun naman pong Moderna, tinatanong po namin, fina-follow up po namin yung application nila. Ang sabi po, kino-complete pa nila yung kanila pong documents, and that the local partner will submit hopefully po this week. Yung Moderna, meron na rin po yung EUA sa US tsaka sa European Union, so hindi naman po tayo matatagalan sa pag-evaluate po niyan. Medyo nagbabasa-basa na nga po tayo yung ating mga evaluators kahit wala pa pong submission. And then yung last po na in-expect natin, probably po ito baka after the second quarter pa mag-a-apply yung pong Novavax. Ito po ay wala pang EUA kahit sa ibang bansa, at mukhang mga June pa po yata, May or June pa sila mag-a-apply. So possible po sa atin towards the later part of the year pa. So ang hinihintay po talaga natin na mag-apply ay yung Moderna.
National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the national government aims to include A4 and A5 priority groups in the vaccination programs next month. However, it depends on whether there are subsequent supplies of vaccine from the COVAX facility.
So ito po ang ating pong simultaneous vaccine na ina-administer po ngayon. Sa Metro Manila po, ginagawa na po natin ang A1+, A2 and A3 starting pa noong March. And then yung ibang mga areas na binigay natin, yung 500,000, nagkaroon na rin po tayo ng tinatawag nating leeway of flexibility na ang mga LGUs ay magkaroon po ng tinatawag natin na simultaneous vaccination. This coming May, naulit po namin na baka magkaroon na po tayo tinatawag na additional vaccine na rollout na magdadagdag na po natin yung A4 at saka yung A5 kung meron po tayong mga succeeding na manggagaling po sa COVAX. Just in case magkakaroon po tayo ng mga limitations, we will still continue yung A1 plus A2 and A3. And then the coming July, na magkakaroon na tayo ng secured and steady supply, ay maaari na po nating bakunahan ang general public at saka mga adult population starting on July.
Okay ka na?
The World Health Organization called on Tuesday for a halt to the sale of live wild mammals in food markets to prevent the emergence of new diseases such as COVID-19. The WHO said because national markets play a central role in providing food and livelihoods for large populations, banning the sale of live wild mammals could protect the health of market workers and customers alike. The call came in fresh guidance drawn up in conjunction the World Organization for Animal Health, or OIE, and the UN Environment Program, or UNEP. The three agencies said wild animals were the source of most emerging infectious diseases in humans and recommended measures to reduce the potential risk. They also said it was likely that SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19 disease, originated in wild animals, though how the virus made the species jump into humans is not yet known. The agency said there was a strong association between the sale of live wild animals in markets and the emergence of new viruses in humans. The agency said food and veterinary inspectors should be trained in enforcing new regulations, and they called for stronger surveillance systems for animal viruses and food safety information campaigns for market traders and consumers.
The COVID-19 pandemic is a long way over, says WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. As of 4.4 cases were reported globally to WHO last week, the fourth highest number in a single week so far. The WHO says the world has now seen 7 consecutive weeks of rising COVID-19 infections.
In January and February, the world saw 6 consecutive weeks of declining cases. We have now seen 7 consecutive weeks of increasing cases and 4 weeks of increasing deaths. Last week was the 4th highest number of cases in a single week so far. Make no mistake, vaccines are a vital and powerful tool, but they're not the only tool. We say this day after day, week after week, and we will keep saying it. Physical distancing works, masks work, hand hygiene works, ventilation works, surveillance, testing, contact tracing, isolation, supportive quarantine, and compassionate care. They all work to stop infections and save lives. Right now, intensive care units in many countries are overflowing and people are dying. This pandemic is a long way from over. But we have many reasons for optimism. The decline in cases and deaths during the first 2 months of the year shows that this virus and its variants can be stopped.
Per week. Last week we had 4.4 million cases. If you look on our website and you actually look at the epi curve and the trajectory of the pandemic right now, it is growing exponentially. This is not the situation we want to be in 16 months into a pandemic where we have proven control measures. It is time right now where everyone has to take stock and have a reality check about what we need to be doing. There was a 9% increase in transmission last week. 7th consecutive week where we've seen an increase in transmission and a 5% increase in deaths. This is not the direction we need to be going, and we really need to be serious about this. It is vaccines, but it's not vaccines only, it's vaccines and. What can you be doing every day? What can we be doing to keep yourself safe and your loved ones safe?
The news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights, sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back. Authorities have nabbed South Korea's 2 most wanted online fraud suspects in Parañaque City, that according to Philippine National Police Chief General Debold Sinas on Tuesday night. Yu Dai-Wong, 39 years old, and Kang Wei-sung, 36, both subjects of a red notice from the International Criminal Police Organization, or Interpol, were arrested in separate operations on Tuesday. Sina said Yu was arrested at 11:15 a.m. at number 100 Hawaii Street, Parañaque City, while Kang was arrested at 12:15 p.m. in Miami Tower Penthouse 20 Azure Urban Resort Residences by operatives of the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, or CIDG, and agents of the Bureau of Immigration. Citing information from the South Korean police attaché, he said Yu and Kang are the 2nd and 4th most wanted online fraud criminals, respectively, in Seoul. The 2 are under the custody of the CIDG for documentation and proper disposition.
Asia is growing strongly in 2021, but there is still much uncertainty and risk to the economic outlook. The IMF says in the newly released Asia Pacific Regional Economic Outlook, released today, April 13 in Washington, D.C. The fund says that the first priority for all countries should be to find effective measures to combat the spread and impact of COVID-19. While growth is firmly in place in China, Japan, and Korea, the countries of the ASEAN region face challenges.
On Asia Pacific.
History must not be allowed to become destiny. A first priority is to ensure that vaccines are widely available and to overcome vaccine hesitancy. Boosting vaccine supply and administration capacity are essential to underpin the recovery. Fiscal support targeted towards vulnerable groups should remain accommodative until private demand recovers. For export-oriented economies in Asia with strong linkages to the United States, the U.S. fiscal expansion will provide positive spillovers through the trade channel. But U.S. interest rates are already on an upward trajectory, and this is spilling over to Asian emerging market economies. If U.S. yields rise faster than markets expect, or if there's miscommunication about future U.S. monetary policy, adverse spillovers through financial channels and capital outflows, as during the 2013 taper tantrum, could present challenges by compromising macro-financial stability. The ASEAN region is in the throes of a resurgence of the pandemic, most notably in Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. And so vaccine rollouts there are urgently needed, and the containment policies to deal with the transition to the vaccine rollout will be costly economically, but they are necessary, and so forth. So this is the challenge going forward.
Most markets rose in Asian trade today as investors shook off a forecast topping U.S. inflation print and concerns over Johnson & Johnson's vaccine, instead turning their attention to the earnings season. Take a look. Hopes are high for the latest round of corporate reports, which starts in earnest in the U.S. later in the day as the global economy recovers and businesses reopen, with analysts saying they will be keeping an eye on outlooks and executives' views on potential U.S. tax reform measures, among other issues. Wall Street provided another healthy lead, with the S&P closing at yet another record, with news that consumer prices rose more than expected have little impact. Observers pointed out that traders accepted that inflation would come in on the high side for a few months, owing to the low base effect from last year at the start of the pandemic. While optimism over the worldwide recovery was the dominant feature in early Asian trade, Hong Kong jumped more than 1%, while Shanghai, Sydney, Seoul, Taipei, Manila, Jakarta, and Wellington also rose. Tokyo and Singapore dipped.
Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Jokna said that increasing confidence of business owners only means that entrepreneurs are more willing to hire, and jobs in various sectors such as healthcare, construction, telecommunication, and as well as in government is in high demand.
Well, ang pagbuti ng business sentiment ay nagpapakita na maraming businessmen at saka mga industriya ay maaring mag-hire ng mga manggagawa sa mga susunod na buwan. Ang mga in-demand na trabaho ay nasa healthcare, construction, BPO at saka sa gobyerno. Magkakaroon din ng mga job opportunities sa telecommunications, logistics, and IT BPO business. For example, customer service representatives, technical support staff, frontline specialists, human resources and recruitment staff, finance, information technology, and marketing.
Singapore-based company Grab plans a U.S. listing after merging with the investment fund Altimeter Capital Management in an operation that values Grab at $39.6 billion, according to the company in a statement on Tuesday. The listing, planned in the coming months on the Nasdaq exchange, would be the biggest global market launch via a special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC. A statement issued by the Singapore-based company said, now if successful, it should provide Grab with $4.5 billion in fresh funds. The deal would involve Grab, a popular ride-hailing company that also delivers meals and provides financial services, merging with what is sometimes called a blank check vehicle that is already listed and whose business consists of helping stock market flotations. The so-called SPAC model has become a favored way of managing such listings because they're faster and less expensive than classic stock flotations. Grab, an Asian unicorn or privately held startup valued at more than $1 billion, could pave the way for similar companies in the region that also want to sell shares to the public. Southeast Asia's population is approximately twice that of the U.S., the statement noted, but the markets served by Grab are much smaller at present, meaning it has plenty of room for growth. The firm's expansion was helped along in the past by taking over Uber's Southeast Asian business in 2018, and it now operates in Singapore, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. The new Australian embassy in Jakarta, Indonesia, which features solar technology, was opened by Foreign Minister Julie Bishop. Take a look. According to the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, or DFAT, it is the largest embassy ever constructed by an Australian government, incorporating a 5-story chancery, staff accommodation, and a recreation and medical center. The compound covers 50,000 square meters. Among its green features are a living rooftop, rainwater, harvesting, energy-efficient air conditioning, and a number of solar hot water systems. According to an ABC report, the compound can also withstand a 1 in 2,500-year earthquake and can move 600 millimeters in any direction. The design of the new embassy chancery was created by Australian architects Denton Corker Marshall and engineers Arikan Australia. Up to 2,500 Indonesian workers were employed on the site, providing a significant boost to local employment.
And the buyer of a $69 million digital artwork in the form of non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, says he felt a soul connection with the artist, as both men started as relative amateurs in their field but found a success after years of hard work. Singapore-based Vignesh Sundaresan, also known as Metakovan, defends the price he paid for the collage of 5,000 pieces of art created on consecutive days, which has transformed its real creator, real name Mike Winkelmann, into the third most valuable living artist. But not everyone believes the NFT boom offers much support. Take a look.
Just free money, so we are not gambling here. As a piece itself is awesome, but there is this signaling and symbolic intention also to show the world that there is this whole thing that's going on underground, And now we get to talk about it, right?
It was from people to the escrow, and from escrow to me. So all these, this is my favorite of the B20.
My idea is to build this industry because I think if this NFT industry is successful, that means it will open up this whole new world for a lot more artists and a lot more collectors. And I think the world will be a better place, right? So that's my intention. And so he has grown over every day, right? Like he has worked 13 years now to get to this point. And I feel like I worked through the same period. So even though we've never spoken before NFTs came about, I felt this soul connection with him where I feel if you really work hard for over 13 years, you're going to be successful in life, right?
I mean, I see the occasional artist getting a lot of money because they're lucky, they're in the right place at the right time. And sure, for that person, good news. But for a regular artist trying to make themselves known, I cannot see how this is helping.
And this is the race.
And that's our broadcast for today. Thank you, Charlene, for keeping me company. And welcome back.
It's great to be back again, Alma. So thank you so much. And that's all the latest news in the ASEAN region. This has been Charlene Navaja. We live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.